Have you ever had one of those moments that seemed ordinary at first? Maybe you were watching the sunrise, standing beside the ocean, or looking up at the sky that's filled with stars. Or maybe you're sitting quietly after a difficult season in your life. And for just a moment, everything becomes still. Not because your problems disappeared, not because life suddenly became easy, because something inside of you whispered, "You're going to be okay." And for just a moment, everything became quiet. I think many of us spend our lives searching for those moments, especially if we're empaths, sensitive souls, caregivers, people who have carried grief, loss, chronic illness, or simply the weight of being human. But this isn't really about becoming more spiritual. It's about remembering that even when life feels uncertain, we're never as alone as we sometimes believe. It's not because the fear disappeared, not because you suddenly had answers, and not because your circumstances changed, but because something inside of you softened. You felt connected to something larger than yourself. Maybe it was peace, presence, or even love. Whatever it was, it reminded you that you were more than what was happening to you. Those moments are often fleeting, but they leave fingerprints on our hearts. And today we're gently exploring the energy centers that many people associate with those experiences of connection, meaning, trust, and spiritual awareness. Today, we're talking about the crown chakra. As always, I want to gently remind you that the information shared in this episode is intended for self reflection, emotional wellness, and spiritual exploration. It is not medical advice, mental health treatment, or replacement for care from your healthcare team. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't, and trust your own wisdom as we explore together. Hello, my friend. I'm Donna Gaudette, and welcome to Healing Our Kindred Spirits podcast. I'm really grateful that you're here. And if you've been with me through this sacred journey through the chakras, thank you for allowing me to walk beside you. And if today is your very first episode, welcome, and I hope you listen to more. Because you know what? You belong here too. Over the past several weeks, we've explored what it means to feel grounded, to rediscover joy, to reconnect with our strength, to soften our hearts, to speak honestly, and to trust our own inner wisdom. Today, we arrive at the final stop on our journey, the crown chakra. So let's settle in for a moment and talk about the crown chakra for a minute. When people first hear the word crown chakra, they sometimes imagine something mystical, distant, or maybe even difficult to understand. But what if we made it much simpler? What if the crown chakra isn't really about a relationship with meaning? Maybe it's our relationship with trust, our ability to feel connected even during life's most uncertain chapters. The crown chakra, often called the crown chakra, often called Sahasrara, and I know I probably did not pronounce that right, and my apologies, is in the ancient yoga traditions of India. And it's associated with consciousness, spiritual awareness, and connection to something greater than ourselves. And traditionally, it's located at the top of the head. It's like a gentle bridge between our individual human experiences and the larger mysteries of life. So the chakra system emerged as one way of understanding the relationship between body, mind, emotions, and spirit, not as a rule book, not as a diagnosis, not as something to believe blindly, but as a lens through which we can better understand ourselves. And maybe that's the invitation for today, not to figure everything out, but to become curious. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions have described it as representing our connection to something larger than ourselves. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, the universe, divine love, source, higher consciousness, and others simply experience it as moments of deep peace. Personally, I don't believe there's one right language. I think what matters is the feeling behind it, because this episode isn't about convincing anyone what to believe. It's about gently exploring what connection means to you. So, I want to talk about chakras because chakras are guideposts. They're not problems to fix, right? And as we've talked throughout the series, we're not broken. Your crown chakra is not broken. Your spiritual life is not broken. Nothing is broken. But sometimes people approach chakra work as if they're trying to repair a machine. But healing rarely works that way. It rarely does. So the chakras are not tests to pass. They're not measurements of how spiritual you are. They're compassionate guideposts. They're gentle invitations. They simply help us notice where our energy may be flowing freely and where we may be carrying fear, exhaustion, grief, or maybe even disconnection. When something happens to us to throw us off our axis, we sometimes have the big questions. Why is this happening? Is my purpose now? What do I believe? What matters most? These aren't signs that something is wrong. They're signs that you're human. We're all going through this human experience together. So, why does the crown chakra resonate with sensitive souls and empaths? I've noticed that the crown chakra often speaks deeply to empaths and caregivers and sensitive souls and seekers as well. And maybe because many of us spend our lives searching for deeper meaning. I know I always have. And we're always searching for understanding, for peace. And many of us spend so much time caring for everyone else that we slowly lose touch with ourselves, don't we? Because life becomes about surviving. It's about getting through appointments, paying bills, managing responsibilities, trying to make everyone else okay. And somewhere along the line, we stop looking up. We stop noticing beauty. We stop allowing ourselves to wonder. But the crown chakra gently reminds us that we are more than our collective to do list, more than our diagnoses, more than grief, more than our mistakes, because it reminds us that life still holds mystery. And perhaps, maybe, so do we. So the crown chakra gently asks, what supports you? Where do you find hope? What helps you remember you're not carrying everything alone? And if you're living with health challenges or supporting someone who is, those questions become even more profound. Because there are moments when some answers cannot address the deeper longing of the heart, the longing to feel connected, the longing to trust, the longing to know that your life has meaning. So, have you ever experienced that longing? I know I have. When you just close your eyes and you imagine what life would be like if only. What if? What helps you connect when you feel spiritually depleted? For me, what I do, I meditate, I journal, and I used to feel really connected when we went to the ocean, or even just looking at the moon at night, looking at the stars, looking at something that had a bigger place in this world than just little old me. So, what might an imbalance of your crown chakra look like or feel like? When this energy feels disconnected or unbalanced or out of sorts, you may notice things like feeling spiritually disconnected. You may wonder, does my life have meaning anymore? You may feel isolated or even emotionally numb. Maybe you believe that you've been forgotten. Maybe you feel like hope is not something that is in your path anymore. Maybe you're even questioning your purpose or simply feeling completely disconnected from yourself. I have to say all of the above. I have experienced these many times in my life. No matter how much spiritual work I do, no matter how many holistic wellness classes I've taken, at one point in my life, I have experienced any one of those, and sometimes all at once. But on the other hand, sometimes people become so focused on spiritual seeking that they unintentionally drift away from everyday life. I like to call this living with my head in the clouds. And I have done this quite a bit in my life as well, where I don't feel grounded, where you're always so up here. And I'm putting my hand over my head into the air because sometimes you're living in a place that's outside of you that you're not feeling connected to your body. And I call that just living in the clouds. My head is spacey. I'm just not feeling grounded. And I usually know when that is happening, and I try to do things to rectify that. And it's possible to spend so much time that we're searching for signs, we're searching for answers, or even certainty that we simply forget to be present. And I am really, really guilty and bad about this. But like every chakra we've explored, balance is found somewhere in the middle. It's not here, it's not there. It's finding that middle ground where we can do both sides, where we balance it in the middle. And if any of those resonate with you, I want to gently remind you, you are not alone. You are not alone. And again, you will do spiritual work, you will do holistic work, you will do things to help balance your life, and you will feel good for a little while. But it doesn't take much to upset that balance. And when it does, you'll get better at noticing it, and you'll be able to rectify it quicker when you're more cognizant of what's going on. So if any of those resonate with you, I want to gently remind you again, you are not alone. Many people experience these feelings more profoundly during periods of grief, illness, caregiving, loss, or even major life transitions. And I have to say, I agree with this entirely. When I lost my dad, I went through all of these and more. When I got sick, same thing. When my life totally did a 180 or sometimes a 360, same thing. You you'll know when it's happening, and sometimes you feel helpless to make everything right, and sometimes it's about doing the work and the time that it takes to do it. And patience and perseverance are two things that you need to have to help rebalance the things in your life that feel out of balance, out of cue, out of whack. So it may be simply your spirit asking for compassion and reconnection. And as a gentle reminder, I want you to know that if you are struggling in any way with your mental health, please, please, please seek out professional help immediately with a qualified therapist. I am a big advocate for therapy. I have been therapy many years in my life and still am for maintenance. And I can't tell you enough how valuable great mental health therapy can be. So find a therapist that you can work with. If you tried someone and it wasn't a good fit, find someone else, because I guarantee you there is someone out there for you that will be able to help you. Please don't struggle in silence. Please reach out for help today. So we've talked about the signs of an underactive crown chakra. What about an overactive crown chakra? Interestingly, we can also become overly focused on spiritual seeking. And I have met these kind of people in my life who seem to jump on the bandwagon of wanting to do what everyone else does. They're not in it because they want to make changes in their life. They're in it because right now it's popular. Or at that time it was the thought of the day and let's do this. But your body, mind, and spirit will know if you are true to what you want to do. And possibly it may not work if you're not ready or if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Because sometimes people will constantly be searching outside of themselves for answers. They become disconnected from everyday life. They have difficulty staying present, maybe spiritual bypassing or using spiritual ideas to avoid painful emotions. They could feel ungrounded. They ignore their practical needs. They live in the future possibilities rather than today's reality. But the invitation here isn't less spirituality. The invitation is balance, to be both deeply human and deeply spiritual, to honor both the mystery and the moment. So, can I ask you something? I want to pause this question for you out there. When was the last time you truly felt connected? I mean, really connected, tuned in and connected. Not busy, not productive, but connected. It's been a while for me at times as well. So don't think there's a right or wrong answer. You're not going to have a test on it. It's not part of your grade. But maybe it happened in nature, maybe while listening to music, holding someone's hand, praying, meditating, journaling, maybe watching the birds outside your window, watching the clouds go by, or sitting quietly beside someone you love, because those moments matter. Sometimes they're far more sacred than we realize. And I want to share a personal story with you, like I usually do in every episode. So if you'll indulge me a little bit. Throughout this series, I've shared little pieces of my own spiritual journey, but today I'd like to share the moment everything truly came together for me, the moment I experienced what I can only describe as my own crown chakra awakening. You may remember bits and pieces of this story from previous episodes, but this was the moment that changed the direction of my life. It was October 2004, and my husband and I had taken a weekend trip to the Cape. And while we were there, I fell and I sprained my ankle. I fell down these steps in this little shop. I don't remember falling. To this day, I still feel that I was energetically pushed. And I ended up being out of work for about a month. And looking back now, I truly believe that unexpected pause gave life a chance to redirect me. And at that point in my life, I was carrying tremendous grief after losing my mom the December before on my 40th birthday. I felt that most of that year I felt lost and I was searching for something, although I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, but I was just going through the motions of life, but not feeling in my life, not feeling connected to anything at all. It was just going through the motions of every day, but not feeling. And around that same time, I kept seeing information about Reiki everywhere. Now, I was home from work. I couldn't work, couldn't drive with that foot. And so when you are left to your own devices and it's quiet at home and you are the only person there, your thoughts become so intrusive. Your thoughts will not stop. You will think of things you never thought of. And that's what happened to me. It seemed to keep finding me everywhere, that word Reiki, and my curiosity finally got the better of me. And on a whim, I signed up after looking at Google and reading more about it. Something told me that I needed to do it. I don't know why, because I really wasn't listening to my intuition at that point. I was still grieving so much. But on a whim, I signed up for that Reiki level 1 class. The following weekend, I drove to the Reiki master's home where she facilitated the class, and it was just a small group of us. And when it came time for the attunement, which is something that the Reiki master will do to the students to attune them to that level of Reiki, what happened when it came time for that attunement? Something happened that I still struggle to put into words. Because even though she gave us a little disclaimer that everyone will experience something differently and some people will be having different experiences than others, she didn't want you to feel disappointed if you felt nothing, because that was normal too, and it could come later on. So I didn't go in with any set of expectations, but I did have an open mind. And when I had my attunement, it felt as though someone had turned on a light deep inside of me. And even talking about this now so makes me very emotional, no matter how many times I've told this story, because I feel like this was my awakening to everything that I have done good in my life. I began to sob. I began to just cry uncontrollably, and I scared the facilitator, and she asked if I was okay, and I said I was. But it wasn't quiet tears. I was just deep, uncontrollable sobbing. And I can't say that I was embarrassed, because at that point in time, it was just something so beautiful that I was feeling that I just didn't want that feeling to end. And again, I think I startled her, because those tears weren't from sadness. They were from recognition. It was as though a part of me had finally come home. When I drove home that afternoon, I realized something had shifted inside of me. For as long as I could remember, I'd always asked these same questions. Since I was a little girl, a different form of them, but I've always felt, why am I here? What is my purpose? Why? I didn't suddenly have all the answers, but for the first time in my life, I stopped believing that I needed them. There was a peace inside of me I had never experienced before. It was a lightness, quiet knowing My husband kept asking me if I was okay because in all the years we've been together, he'd never seen me like that before. I don't know if happy is the right word. It was more about happiness. I left as one person and I came back as another, and he was a little bit thrown off by that, but he was more curious and worried than anything. But it was a deep sense of connection and peace that seemed to settle into every part of me. I mean, every part of me. It didn't take away my emotions or my grief or anything like that. Those were still in the corners of my soul. But there was something else that was bigger than those types of feelings. And I remember sitting outside our home surrounded by trees, simply watching and listening. The birds sounded different, the breeze felt different. Nature hadn't changed. Everything was the same as it was before I left. But what changed was me. And from that day forward, I developed an insatiable curiosity to learn everything I could about spirituality, holistic healing, and the metaphysical. I took classes that resonated with me, attended workshops. I completed a hypnotherapy certification program in Boston, and I found myself doing things I never thought I was capable of doing. I always lived from a place of fear that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't brave enough. But what I did was I even drove into Boston by myself. This was even before GPSs existed. It wasn't that I suddenly became fearless. It was that I finally believed my life had purpose and meaning. And around that same season, something else happened that would shape my journey. After my fall in Cape Cod, my doctor ordered an MRI, which revealed a pituitary microadenoma, which is a small tumor in your pituitary gland. At that point in my life, again, before I took Reiki, after I had fallen, at that point in my life, I was still so consumed by grief, I honestly didn't care what happened to me. And I delayed following up because I simply didn't have the emotional strength. But after that Reiki class, after that feeling, that connection, something changed inside of me. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted to live. I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to discover where this new path might lead. As my own spiritual practice deepened within me, I began meditating regularly. And during one meditation, I felt strongly that I needed to schedule the follow up MRI I had been avoiding. And again, whether someone calls it intuition, prayer, guidance, or something else entirely, it felt important to me. But I was terrified because this time I wanted to be okay. And before that appointment, I had visited my mom's grave at the cemetery, and I spoke out loud to my mom like I often did when I went, and I talked to my mom, to God, my angels, my spirit guides, anyone who might be listening. And I made a promise. I said, if I'm okay, if you let me be okay, I will spend the rest of my life helping others and being of service in any way that I can. As I got back into my car and turned the key to start the ignition, Tim McGraw's song, Live Like You Were Dying, began playing on the radio. And if you know that song, I mean, really, really listen to the words in that moment. It felt incredibly meaningful to me. I sat there and I cried harder than I had cried in a very long time. A few weeks later, I had the MRI. When the doctors came into the room, they looked puzzled. One of them finally said, there's nothing there. They suggested additional testing, but deep inside of me, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I chose not to pursue it further because for me, that chapter felt complete. My husband was just speechless. I don't know what he expected, but I knew what I felt. And people have asked me over the years if I believe Reiki healed me. My answer is a little different. What healed me wasn't simply one experience. It was the way that experience transformed how I lived, how I awakened hope, It restored my purpose, my faith. It taught me to care for myself again. It taught me to care. It reminded me that healing isn't always about changing our circumstances. Sometimes healing begins when we change our relationship with those circumstances. Years later, my life looks very different than I imagined it would. Today, I live with chronic pain. I've faced serious illnesses. I've survived cancer. I've survived septic shock. I've had seasons where my spirituality felt quiet beneath the weight of grief or exhaustion. But here's what I've learned: healing and suffering can exist together, joy and pain can exist together, faith and uncertainty can exist together. And my spiritual journey has never promised me a life without hardship. Instead, it has given me the strength, compassion, patience, and resilience to walk through those many hardships with a different perspective. Today, I still meditate. I still practice Reiki on myself. I still find comfort in prayer every night. I still feel deeply connected to nature. I still feel deeply connected to the angels and my own spirituality. And I still believe that everything I truly need, truly need, will arrive in its own divine timing. And one of my favorite quotes by the late, great Wayne Dyer says, quote, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change," unquote. Those words have stayed with me for years because they describe my journey perfectly. And looking back now, I don't believe my crown chakra awakening gave me all the answers. I believe it gave me something much more valuable. It reminded me that life could still hold meaning even after heartbreak. It taught me to stay curious instead of fearful. It helped me trust that there was something greater than my pain. If there's one thing I hope you take away from my story today, it's this: stay open, stay curious, just believe. Your own spiritual journey may look nothing like mine, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. But I truly believe that each of us experiences moments that gently invite us towards something greater than ourselves. And sometimes all we have to do is say yes and believe. So I would give a few moments to talk about the ways that we can gently nurture our crown chakra. So, how do we nourish this energy? Not through striving, not through perfection, but through small moments of connection. Because sometimes the most powerful crown chakra practice isn't a complicated meditation. Sometimes it's simply just paying attention. And the beautiful thing about this chakra is that it doesn't ask us to become anyone different. Instead, it invites us to slow down enough to notice what has always been there. You might spend a few quiet moments in meditation each morning, not trying to force an experience, but simply allowing yourself to be present. You might step outside before the rest of the world wakes up and watch the sunrise without reaching for your phone. You might sit beneath the sky and remember how wonderfully small and wonderfully connected we all are. And some people enjoy prayer while others feel closest to something greater through nature, music, creativity, or acts of kindness. Maybe even some gentle breath work, yoga, mindfulness, or simply spending time in silence can help create space for reflection. I know when we go to the Cape, I get up before the sun comes up, and I just like to sit outside and watch the sun come over the water. To me, that is the most spiritual experience that I can enjoy. And sometimes just listening to the water crash, it's so peaceful. Just standing there, putting my feet into the sand and just watching the expanse of something so much bigger than what I am. That's my spirituality. That's my church. That's where I get my most profound guidance is when I am at the ocean. And if crystals are meaningful to you, clear quartz, selenite, or amethyst are often associated with the crown chakra. And Aromas like frankincense, lavender, sandalwood, they can help you create a peaceful atmosphere for meditation as well. And none of these are requirements, they're simply invitations. The most important practice is the one that helps you come home to yourself. I want to share a few things that help me when my crown chakra needs a little attention. The first one is stillness. Maybe a few quiet moments each day with no agenda, no fixing, not needing to be anywhere can be really helpful. And then there's mindfulness. Mindfulness can take a little bit of practice, but once you spend time with it and once you actually learn what mindfulness is, it becomes much more easy to incorporate it to your day or your routine because it's noticing your breath, it's noticing the room around you, it's noticing that this moment is here. All that matters is the present moment. And what about nature? Watch the clouds go across the sky, sit beneath a tree, walk slowly outdoors. Allow yourself to experience wonder. Watch animals in nature, birds, squirrels, chipmunks, bunnies. My husband and I love to watch the small animals and birds come on the deck. We even have one of those bird feeders with the camera on it that identifies the bird visiting. We just love to watch nature. We really do. And then, of course, there's meditation. Simple guided meditation can gently quiet your mind and create space for connection. And if you are so guided, I am going to let you know that we do have original guided meditations in our podcast episode lineup. And please, if you can listen to them, they are really empowering. And I've written every one of them. And then there's gratitude, not forced positivity, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in toxic positivity, but just notice small gifts. Maybe a kind text, maybe a warm blanket, a moment of laughter. Little things can mean big things. And then if you can, there's gentle movement like yoga, stretching, walking, anything that helps you feel present in your body while remaining connected to your spirit. And then aromatherapy. I love aromatherapy. I don't use it as much as I used to because of the sensitivities that I have with different scents and everything else that affects me. But many people enjoy frankincense, lavender, sandalwood. And choose whatever feels comforting for you. And as I've mentioned in other episodes, please use caution when using essential oils or using aromatherapy and read the instructions carefully and do your due diligence, especially if you have pets or young children. Always be safe, always be smart. Read everything beforehand. And of course, I mentioned crystals because some people feel drawn to clear quartz because that stone will magnify the energy of any stone near it or that you add to near it. The selenite, I have several beautiful selenite pieces, but remember, don't get them wet because they can disintegrate over time. And then amethyst, which is my favorite stone, it covers just about everything. And remember, these are tools for intention and reflection than not magical cures. They're more for what you feel like. I have crystals in every room of my home. The bathroom, the living room, the bedroom, and I sleep with a puffy rose quartz heart every night. I sleep with it in my hand. It's a palm stone, and to me, that's what keeps me balanced and keeps me safe. To me, that's what it does for me. I hold it when I say my prayers. If I'm feeling scared during the night, I put it in my palm of my hand. When we travel or when we used to travel, I always took my little bag of crystals with me, and they would be right on the nightstand wherever we were. I carry crystals in my purse. I carry crystals on my person when I know I'm going to be in a stressful situation or one that could be stressful. I always have crystals with me all the time. And then my favorite one is Everyday Awe, AWE. This one I think is my favorite because it's about simple things. Maybe watching a bird landing nearby, in our case, landing in the bird feeder with the camera. A child laughing, a baby laughing, anything along those lines gives me so much joy. The moon rising. I am a moon girl. I am a selenophile. I love the moon at all its stages, but the full moon, I sit there and I watch the moon rise, especially if we are on the Cape at the water. Watching the moon rise, I cry. I literally cry. And what about a beautiful song or something that means something to you? I know when I hear certain songs, they hit me a certain way. My family's motto song is "You Are My Sunshine." When I hear that, I cry. My dad loved the song "In the Arms of an Angel." So beautiful songs, anything that has meaning can really make you feel. in awe of just life, because there are moments that remind us that life still contains mystery. So, what fills your awe these days? What makes you feel empowered? What makes you feel your spirit is lifted? So, before we close today, I'd like for us to pause together for a moment and think about where we began. We started at the root chakra, learning how to feel safe. Then we explored the sacral chakra, remembering joy, the solar plexus, finding our confidence, the heart, allowing ourselves to love and receive love, the throat, speaking with honesty, the third eye, learning to trust ourselves, and today, the crown, remembering that we've never truly walked alone. Because healing isn't a straight line. It isn't something we finish, it's something we practice, one gentle step at a time. And if today's conversation resonated with you, here are a few gentle invitations for reflection. Ask yourself, when do I feel most connected to myself? What helps me experience wonder? How has my understanding of spirituality changed over the years? What moments in my life have quietly restored hope? And where might I invite more stillness into my days? You can journal those, you can write about them, you can contemplate them, whatever works for you. And I just want to leave you with a few affirmations, some gentle affirmations. You can repeat them to yourself, you can write them down and keep them on post-it notes or on cards like I do. And some of them, some of my favorites are, I am connected to something greater than myself. Peace is available to me one breath at a time. I don't need to have every answer today. I am worthy of love, belonging, and hope. And I am exactly where I need to be in this moment. Those are some of my favorites. And if today's conversation resonated with you again, I invite you to continue the journey with the companion Crown Chakra guided meditation. And I have to say that the companion meditation, this one that I wrote, is one of the most beautiful I have written so far. I meditated on it for days because it just wasn't coming together. And I asked my spirit helpers for guidance when I was feeling stuck. And it is unlike any other meditation I have written. It will take you on a journey of self discovery and rediscovery. And I have a feeling it will have you listening again and again. And you don't need any special experience. It's guided, so it's going to just take you on that journey. Just bring your breath, your heart, and your willingness to be present. So before we say goodbye today, I simply want to thank you. Thank you for walking the sacred journey through the chakras with me. And whether you've listened to every episode or whether today was your first, I hope you've discovered something important, because it's not about perfection. It's not enlightenment. It's not all the answers, but perhaps a little more kindness toward yourself, or even a little more curiosity, a little more hope, because healing doesn't happen all at once. And I am the poster child for that. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens every time we choose compassion instead of criticism, presence instead of pressure, and love instead of fear. And as I prepare for a short summer pause before returning with season 3 in mid September, my hope is that you'll continue coming back to these conversations whenever you need them. They're always there. I have over 75 podcast episodes and guided meditations in our library. Please take a look. And if you haven't listened to any yet, please do. And let me know what you think of them. Healing isn't something we rush. Sometimes the most meaningful growth happens in the quiet spaces between the chapters of our life. And until we meet again, may you notice beauty where you least expect it. May you trust your own gentle wisdom. And may you always remember you never have to walk this path alone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you more than you know. And until next time, be gentle with yourself. And always remember, you are never too much. And you are always, always enough. Thank you.